on the old checklist, remembering that there's a local election coming up in November. Then it's understanding what's in those blue books being mailed in Denver. Third, it's actually turning in the ballot. And that's where the city's election division realized there are pockets of Denver that are underserved, and it's impacting some minority communities. Here's our Anusha Roy with the changes just put in place.
A new ballot drop box isn't really exciting, but the reason this one is here is worth talking about.
They are sort of an underserved area that starts in Montbello, works its way down I-70 into the Globeville, Elyria, Swansea area, and then out through this part of North Denver into South Denver.
Alton Dillard with the Elections Division said after every election they revisit their mapping data, and they also heard from people worried about access and found some gaps.
It appeared in some of these underserved and communities of color that there weren't quite enough boxes to give us coverage citywide.
A problem they caught knowing full well there are 4 elections in the next year. First up is in November, when voters will be asked about taxes and sports betting.
We've always wanted to make it as easy as possible for all of Denver's voters.
The city has routinely added in more ballot boxes, and this week 5 new ones were installed. That includes in front of the Rodolfo Corky Gonzalez Branch Library.
There it is.
And the La Familia Recreation Center.
This is a predominantly Hispanic community. It always has been, and I think it's really good to get everybody out and vote.
Terrence McCoy is the center supervisor and reached out to the city, saying they needed this after what he saw during the mayoral election earlier this year.
Well, there's not really a close location to drop off your ballots in the Baker neighborhood.
He said instead, people were showing up at the rec center the day ballots were due.
At least 200 people came in trying to drop off their ballots, and we didn't have any solution for them but to send them to a different location.
But as for why these neighborhoods and minority communities fell into this gap in the first place,
that's kind of hard to say, but the thing that I can say is that our new clerk and recorder, Paul Lopez, that's going to be an emphasis of his, is just making sure that people have the ability to participate.
Paul Lopez is a former city councilman who used to represent a section of West Denver that also got one of these new ballot boxes. The city is looking to put in 4 more before the presidential primaries coming up in March. So starting Monday, Steve, they're going to start taking suggestions from people for about 2 weeks about where they think these additional 4 ballot boxes should go.
So how many does the city currently have, and how many do they need?
Yeah, so the minimum requirement, which is based off of the size of the county, is only 14. So right now we've got 33. That number is going to jump up to 36 next year, but because of the city continuously adding these ballot boxes, we're going to be ahead of that number as well.
It sounded like a lot of work to install it.
I know, did you see that?
Heavy machinery and
some moving companies and all of that, yeah.
Anusha Roy, thank you. Well, the officer-involved shooting involving Devon Bailey in Colorado Springs is going to a grand jury now. The district attorney's office referred the case to a grand jury this morning. Bailey was shot and killed by 2 officers while running away from them in August. He and another man were suspected in an armed robbery when the shooting happened. Police say officers believed he was going for a gun when they shot him. They say a gun was later found in his pants. His family, even Governor Jared Polis, have called for an independent investigation. Legal expert David Beller says high-profile cases like this tend to go to a grand jury.
In officer-involved shootings or a case where race is really a major part of a prosecution, a grand jury can protect the prosecutor from criticism, and they're used frequently in these hot-button type cases. Is it independent with a grand jury? Not really, because the district attorney's office here are still the ones that are driving the investigation.
A grand jury will decide whether the officers should face charges in the shooting or whether it was justified. It's a process that could take weeks, months, or even a year. People driving through Salida. CDOT is asking you not to stop on the highway to take pictures of the Decker fire. That is happening along US 50 and US 285. It's dangerous and it could block firefighters and emergency vehicles. The 5,800-acre Decker fire is burning dangerously close to Salida. 130 homes are evacuated as of right now. It's been nearly 3 months since a giant crack created a sinkhole on the eastbound lanes of US 36. CDOT says it's fixed. The crumbling foundation underneath the road that caused that. Now, it reopened the eastbound lanes to drivers today. All the eastbound lanes between Wadsworth and Church Ranch Boulevard opened early this morning. So CDOT replaced the material underneath the damaged lanes with a geofoam, which is type of a expanding polystyrene. It's waterproof foam that will create a firmer foundation then the soil that actually failed there. At the start of the emergency repairs, CDOT estimated they would cost about $20 million. We asked if the project is staying on budget. CDOT says it's too early to say.
So we're still actively out here in construction, and we don't have a total cost yet. Our Transportation Commission at CDOT set aside $20.4 million for the emergency response and the rebuild of this wall. I think in the coming months we'll have a better idea of the final cost.
CDOT has also opened a temporary bike lane through that area that is separated from the construction area by a concrete barrier. They are asking all bicyclists to be extra cautious when you ride through that area. Additional work on the wall, final bike path, and fence is expected to last through December. Well, the Avs played a heck of a hockey game last night. At least it's what I heard. This blackout involving Altitude TV prevented much of the metro area from seeing the first game of a highly anticipated season. I checked in with Altitude today to see if the big event last night moved the needle in that negotiation at all. Radio silence. Makes you wonder if this whole regional sports network model is viable anymore. The concrete block in front of Pepsi Center's entrance is one of the only places you could see last night's game. The season opener, where the much buzzed about Avs beat the Calgary Flames 5-3, was expected to be one of the highest rated games of the year. But Altitude Sports is blacked out on Dish, DirecTV, and Comcast. And with 3 carriers now saying no thanks to Altitude's prices, it kind of makes you wonder about the future of regional sports networks, something we talked about today with Metro State marketing professor Darren Dubersmith during a taping of our podcast from the Cheap Seats. What's the future of the regional sports network? Because it seems like this model now is not working.
It's definitely not. It's been broken for a long time, and it's vertical integration. So what happens is that the sport property wants to own their own arenas, they want to own their own radio stations, they want to own their own ticket service, they want to own their own pretty much everything.
Dubersmith told us this isn't a problem for the Avs and Nuggets alone. It's going to be a nationwide conversation, though it's amplified by Kroenke Sports' business decision to let 3 major contracts with carriers expire at the same time, leaving them with little to no leverage. And the fans starting to look less at the providers and more at the network.
The fans are finally saying, hey, look, Kroenke, you guys are one of the most profitable sports organizations in the entire world. You own this, you own that, you own this, you own that. Why do you have to make so much money on Altitude? Why can't you use it as a loss leader? Why can't you use it as something to develop your casual fan base?
So it really comes down to who blinks first here. Quick reminder, the Nuggets are also on Altitude, and they tip off in about 3 weeks. There's a young boy in Denver in the metro area here who is perfectly portraying how a lot of Avs fans are feeling about this Avs TV blackout.
I don't have the abs.
I have the abs, Breck. Do you want the abs? So that's 2-year-old Brecken. His Aunt Stacy shared this video with us. She says he loves hockey, carries around his hockey stick wherever he goes. His 5-year-old brother Parker just started to play hockey with the Mile High Mites. So here's something to think about. When you're going through a tough time or having a bad day and someone checks in on you, how often have you said, "I'm fine," even when you're not? There's a man from Arvada who knows a lot of people probably do this. He's been guilty of it. He showed our Sonia Gutierrez how he's trying to get more people to be more open and honest step by step.
The first step is usually the hardest. It was for Scott Masters when he decided he was going to answer a question we all get differently.
I recently came across a hard time in my life, and someone asked me how I was. I actually answered it for once in my life.
Honestly. He answered honestly. Something he says we don't do enough of.
I really just want people to understand that it's okay to talk about these things and be open and honest about where people are in their lives and what they're dealing with emotionally and mentally and even physically, and just be okay that things are not always great.
40-something days ago, he decided to take that first step to change the way we answer this question.
Everyone has a good day and a bad day, so I take it all in stride.
And change the way we think about mental health. He's running 10K every day until he raises $10,000 for a mental health organization.
Every day is different, and it's a mindset and a physical thing, but that's such is life.
And on the way, he's blogging about it, very honestly.
The money is going toward the National Alliance on Mental Illness, an organization that helps folks here in our state. In the 44 days of running 6 miles every day, he's raised a little more than $3,000. Now, there is always someone out there to help when you need it. If you find it hard to talk to family or friends about your mental health, you can always call Colorado Crisis Services 24/7. Call 1-844-493-8255 or text the word TALK to 38255. Saturday Night Live has a new cast member who's making history.
He was involved in the choir, he was involved in theater, he was funny, he was a great improviser.
The first Asian American to join the cast full-time can partly thank Colorado for his comedic roots. The Great American Beer Festival is here. Allow us to offer a little bit of advice for Denver's largest craft beer party. Next. It's that time of year when a big chunk of our team rejoices over the Great American Beer Festival in Denver. We have invested time, research, and repeated visits to best understand it all. And if you are going for the first time, allow me to offer some tips. Eat before you go. The lines at the vendors inside can get long, and they kill time you could be spending at the beer stands. And if you make a pretzel necklace, you'll be plenty full all day. If you don't mind missing the bagpipes and pomp and circumstance, I'd suggest getting there a bit before the gates officially open. When you first walk inside, look for vendors giving away free necklaces with a little taster cup holder on it. That way you don't have to carry it around all day. And pro tip, if you're going to one of Saturday's sessions, try to find a list of beers that have won awards and track them down. They will not disappoint.
The pretzel necklace, absolutely key if you're heading out there. The view across downtown Denver looking a little hazy, smoky out there, courtesy of the Decker fire burning near Salida. Here in the metro area, visibility will be poor, air quality moderate, at least through tomorrow afternoon. Strong winds going across the entire state, 30 to 40 mile per hour speeds up in the mountains, 35 near Buena Vista. And red flag warnings will be in place at least through this evening, 7, 8 o'clock tonight, and potentially we could see them go back into effect tomorrow. Here in the metro area, no wet weather today. to speak of overnight. We'll have mostly clear skies, temperatures cooling off to the low 40s, but it will be a windy one. Temps tonight up in the mountains, 20s and 30s. As we look at the futurecast, we'll wake up to a few clouds. A cold front dives in overnight, but it really won't bring us any rain, no snow to speak of. We just will be looking at those strong winds and unfortunately high fire danger. A fire weather watch in place Saturday afternoon, northern and central mountains with wind gusts potentially as high as 50 miles per hour. Tomorrow will be a bit cooler thanks to that front. Upper 60s, low 70s for eastern Colorado and a bit cooler up in the mountains. 61 on Sunday. And then as we head toward next week, kind of the warm, Steve, before our next storm, which right now potentially we could be tracking a couple of snowflakes early Thursday morning.
Did you say snowflakes?
I sure did.
My goodness.
I know.
We'll have to keep an eye on that, Danielle.
We will, for sure.
Thank you. The Denver Zoo loses a lot of its animals to love. Most recently, the gorillas were shipped out of town. Before that, it was polar bears that were shipped out. Now the zoo is saying it also lost a Komodo dragon. Christika took off to San Antonio to be with her boyfriend. But don't worry, the zoo got another lady to take her place. The zoo introduced Tiga on Twitter today. Since they had to send Christika to Texas, the San Antonio Zoo sent Tiga here. She is already on the display in the Tropical Discovery exhibit. Speaking of the zoo's old polar bears, some next viewers have been wondering how Cranberry is doing on the family front. Now, Alex asked, whatever happened to the saga of Cranberry and Lee? The Alaska Zoo still does not think that she is pregnant. Zookeepers say they haven't seen any breeding behavior there, but they are keeping her in the maternity setting until the end of the month, just in case. They said maybe they need to pipe in some Barry White music there to set the mood. The most Colorado thing we saw today is a big event going down in Nathan. Some cities have music festivals, some have carnivals, but this western mountain town has a good old-fashioned barn dance. Nothing says Colorado more than that. Thanks to our viewer Richard for taking that picture. You can send us your picture to next@9news.com or get our attention with the hashtag #HeyNext. Smoky Hill High School is home growing a lot of Colorado talent.
Incredibly proud and of his journey, but incredibly proud. Like he's a great representative of all of the kids that we have.
One of their alums is making history on SNL. We meet the man who helped steer him to comedy. This Friday, we have some good news of our own to share. With all the engagements on the next team, you knew this was coming. Next. Saturday Night Live has been on the air for 45 years, but it wasn't until this season that they hired their first full-time Asian American cast member, Bowen Yang. He's a 2008 graduate of Smoky Hill High School in Aurora, and that is where we caught up with one of his teachers who helped steer Yang into comedy.
And the y equals mx plus b.
Adrian Olguin has been teaching math here for 22 years.
10 goes right there. What is that? It is truly, truly diverse. Socio and economically, it's diverse. The next one is 10, right?
He is a huge fan of mathematics.
Mathematics doesn't care what your accent is. Mathematics doesn't care what socioeconomic. It can get you as far as you want.
For one of his students, it got him all the way to 30 Rockefeller Plaza. Saturday Night Live.
Yeah, Bowen was one of a kind for sure. Brilliant, personable, approachable. Like Bowen was, I think, a true Renaissance person.
Bowen Yang took a few classes with Olguin, but maybe more influential was Spontaneous Combustion, an improv class started by Olguin because he also likes comedy.
It's kind of an institution at this point.
Those performances and rehearsals have earned Yang a first.
When he played Kim Jong-un the first time, I got to see that.
While Olguin is a big fan of Yang's, he sees potential in all of his students and realizes they may not know what Saturday Night Live is.
Saturday Night Live is starting to sit for them sometimes as a cultural touchstone that they'll discover later.
For Yang, he has made the discovery. After all, his senior superlative, most likely to be a cast member on Saturday Night Live. A dream come true.
That's a pathway that can start in high school, I think is important. And the fact that we now have a person that we can point to that says, like this is a pathway that you can play with.
For Next, I'm Tom Cole.
One of Yang's sketches made it to the final dress where Lorne Michaels had the final say. A resounding no was all he got from Michaels. His teacher got a laugh out of that, as did Yang. A good news segment that is special to the Next family. And Friday's final word goes to you, as always, with your feedback next. Fridays on Next are about sharing good news. And tonight we have some very good news to celebrate with all of you. Our politics guy, Marshall Zellinger, is now a married man. Marshall and his wife, Jana, tied the knot last night. A lot of us in the Next family were there to celebrate the newlyweds. So if you've been wondering where Marshall's been recently, now you know. Congratulations, Marshall and Jana. Here's to your good news. Share it with us using the hashtag HeyNext. You can also email next@9news.com. Kent wanted to know, why not stream Altitude? The financials are too tough. We'll see you next time.